Okay, so let's get to introducing Brian. Brian, our first speaker. Brian Halvorson is a physical education teacher at South Middle School in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And along with teaching his own classes, Brian travels to other schools to educate kids on the importance of sun safety and to tell his survivor story. More than 11,000 students in and around Grand Forks have heard Brian Halvorson tell the story of his melanoma diagnosis and treatment. Thank you for presenting today, Brian, and please go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very humbled to be here because I still find it hard that anyone wants to listen to what I have to say, but thank you. I appreciate being here. So as you heard, my name is Brian Halvorson. I live in Grand Forks. I'm a school teacher here in town. When I talk to you guys today, I'm going to talk, I apologize right now. I talk a lot about kids because that's kind of my focus and what I do. So I apologize if I bring that up a lot, but that's kind of where I'm at with my cancer and everything going on. So I grew up in small town, North Dakota. I'm 52 years old. And back when I was growing up, there just was not a lot of use of sunscreen or concern about skin cancer. It just wasn't out there. So I grew up going to the swimming pool, and then I ended up working at the swimming pool and, playing sports and just being outside all day with no sunscreen. And unfortunately, it caught up with me when I was 37 years old, which was back in 2007. I was diagnosed, started with a little spot on my cheek, just the size of a pimple. I didn't really think much about it, and because it was there for about 6 months. And, I had that attitude, even at age 37. And this is something I talked to the kids about. My attitude was, bad things don't happen to me. I don't worry about these things. So I didn't really think about it much. But my wife was the one that thankfully made me go in and get that spot checked out. So I went to a dermatologist, and they took a sample and it came back. And that's when I found out I had melanoma. And even at that point, like I said, I didn't know much about melanoma because I didn't worry about those things. So I still remember doing a Google search on melanoma, and the first thing I read was the deadliest of all skin cancers. And at that point, I knew I was in trouble. So they, in town here, they took that little spot out. I had surgery. They stitched me back up. They thought that they had caught it early enough, so they sent me home. I remember them telling me, go home, live a good life. I wish it would have been that simple, but it wasn't. About 6 weeks later, I had a lump in my neck, and it was a lymph node that was swollen. So we had to take that out. They took that lymph node out. So the melanoma had spread from my cheek into my neck. And I remember looking back, this is the point where, this is where I really started to realize how serious this was, when I started using the word spread. Was scary stuff. I was diagnosed with, I was at stage 3. And looking back at this time, I was just remember just really being scared, and just the unknown was the worst part of going through this, just not knowing what my future held for me. So thankfully, I did have, and I still do have, very strong family support with my mom and dad and my wife. And it's that strong family support I know is very important. I didn't, talking about my family quickly, one thing I would like people to realize is you need to look out for the caregivers too, because this, when you're diagnosed with this, it's certainly not an easy process. And it was hard for me to realize at the time just how hard it was on my family too. So thankfully, though, I had a strong supporting family there. So I headed down to Mayo. The All True here in town just sent me right down to Mayo because it was spreading. So I'm going to be honest, that Mayo saved my life. say that till the day I die. I remember just driving down there, being nervous and scared. And the first meeting I had with my oncologist was phenomenal. Talk about giving a person hope. Everything was positive. They didn't focus on any facts or figures of, what my chances are being stage 3. And I just remember leaving that first appointment just feeling amazing, just knowing that I was in the right place and I was going to beat this. So, like I said, I owe my life to Mayo, and just that first appointment is something I will always remember, just the positive. And I remember Elisa was her name, just saying, "This is what we do. We beat melanoma. This is the plan. So let's go do it." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." I was ready to go. So that it's amazing how much that helped me just in my process. So, so the plan when I got down there is I had a neck dissection to take out all the lymph nodes, the parotid gland. I did 2.5 weeks of radiation, and then I did 3 years of immunotherapy was my treatment. I did the neck dissection and the radiation actually down at Mayo. So I had a lot of time on my hands because between radiation appointments, we had, a few days in between. So had, a lot of time to self-reflect and start thinking. And this is kind of when I started wondering, why me? Why was I diagnosed with cancer? Well, so what was my purpose in this diagnosis? And then it finally hit me one day that I'm a teacher, and I know I can reach out to kids, and I have good relationships with them, and I have access to them. So I kind of figured this is what I need to do. I need to get out and talk to the kids here in Grand Forks about my poor choices that I made growing up. And hopefully I can help, prevent just anyone going through what I've been through, and to get in a good habit of protecting their skin from the sun. I am very grateful that my school district here in town they let me get out and go. I teach in one school, but they let me go out to the other schools and hit all the kids. So I try to hit every 7th grader and 10th grader in town every year. It was going really good for about 10 years. And then COVID kind of set me back a little bit, but thankfully now I'm back in the classroom. I was actually at one of the high schools yesterday. So I'm so grateful to be back, because it's just a good feeling when I can get into the classroom and talk to the kids. Some other things we've done here in town with the school district, like I said, they've been very supportive. I've been working with Mariah at All True, and we've gotten sunscreen in all the schools, all 19 schools. And we've also, in the past, we've done skin checks for staff, like at back to school, a little skin check. So that was pretty cool too. So I've done my talk over 500 times, 544 to be exact. I'm sorry. I'm pretty proud of that. But, I will travel anywhere. I've traveled all the way out to Minot, up to Walhalla, which is 3-4, I've traveled over 3 hours, and this is just part of my healing process. And it's, it kind of answers my question, why me? Because I'm able to get out and do this. And as of today, thankfully, I've been cancer free for over 13 years. I realize I'm going to live with this the rest of my life. I still see a dermatologist twice a year. I have had many biopsies, and I'm sure I will have more. But looking back, if I had advice for anyone dealing with melanoma, is find someone to talk to. The more you talk about things, the better they are. I know that's hard for some people. It was really hard for me too, but just find an ear, get to talking. And then stay, if you're fighting cancer, what helped me is I just stayed off the internet. I didn't, there's a lot of depressing studies out there that you can look with cancer and everything. And I just tried to get rid of all the negatives and stay positive was kind of the, like I said, it was a tone that was set for me when we got to Mayo, and I tried to continue with that. But I even today I still live in fear that this will come back. But I try not to let that dominate me. But like I said, I try to stay positive. But that fear is always in the back of my mind. If I have anything on, show up that I don't know what it is on my skin, my first thought is my cancer back, unfortunately. But thankfully, I'm still cancer free. But like I said, if I could share one thing with anyone, it's attitude is everything. You have your good days, you have your bad days. Like I said, I reflect to that time at Mayo and just the attitude they had and carried over onto me. And I think that carried me a long way, just staying positive and having hope. It might not, there's times certainly where it doesn't seem like there's light at the end of the tunnel, but there is. And for me, being here, having a chance to talk to you and having the opportunity to get out and talk to kids, that is my light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm thankful to be here. And I want to thank everyone for having me. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. That's a really powerful story. And we really appreciate you being here and your willingness to share it. And thank you so much for touching all those kids. That's really terrific. It's the way to prevent a lot of cancers, including melanoma. So I also want to say I think it'll inspire others to figure out the why me, because that's what it's all about too. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yep.